What's happening, everybody? It is Thursday, January 14th. A new episode of The Grail is here. Great guest today, boutique guitar builder, absolute artist. Matt Hughes is with me from Banker Guitars today. This man makes a mean Korina Flying V, a mean Korina Explorer, and lots of artists are playing his stuff. Marcus King, Scott Holiday from the Rival Sons, Brent Hinds of Mastodon, Charlie Starr of Blackberry Smoke, all kinds of great players. This guy was a great guest, and I know you guys are going to love it. Episode 10, can you believe it? We're chugging along. Great sponsor today. My brother Mark Brunot is the sponsor today. He has a new podcast out called A Rock and Roll Rabbit Hole. It's a weekly music podcast that takes a positive fanboy's deep dive on great songs, artists, and bits of songs that fall under random themes every episode, and they tie them all together with YouTube interviews, facts, and stories. Check it out. He's got topics like songs about drugs, songs with F-bombs, cowbells from hell, Dead by 40. New episodes every week. Another one has just dropped, so dive into it. A rockandrollrabbithole.com or Spotify or your Apple Podcast app. Dig into it. Episode 2's out right now. It is a deep rabbit hole dive on songs with girls' names in the title, and you can subscribe and check it out on the Apple Podcast app and Spotify. That is a rockandrollrabbithole.com from our good buddy Mark Brunot. All right, let's get into it right here. Let's rock it with Matt Hughes of Banker Guitars. Thank you, everybody, and do not forget to subscribe to the Grail, leave a review. It really helps. And also check out my YouTube channel, Dean Del Rey. We have the Patreon up also, patreon.com/Dean Del Rey. Everything is out there for you guys. Enjoy the content. Have a great weekend. Here we go. Candles are lit. Mr. Matt Hughes. All right. It is a new episode of The Grail. And of course, when I started The Grail, I kicked it off with Grover Jackson and made a specific announcement that this is not a guitar podcast because people fucking go crazy. You gotta have Timmy Tom pedals on and all this stuff. But there is a man right here that is on the show today that is a must-have guest because he is king of the handmade boutique guitars, Matt Hughes of Banker Guitars. How are you, buddy?
I am wonderful. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. You're out in Nashville, right? Or Tennessee-ish?
Yeah. I mean, everybody in Atlanta basically says I live in Tennessee, but we're like North Georgia, like 50 miles north of the city, like kind of near Tennessee border.
Gotcha. And did you grow up there?
No, I actually grew up in upstate New York.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was born in DeKalb County, Georgia. And I think when I was like 4 years old, my parents moved back where they were originally from, upstate New York. So yeah, I spent most of my formative years up there until I was probably 21, I think. And then moved back down south when I was like 21, 22 years old. So I've been down here for a while. I've been down here for 16, 17 years now, I guess. So, but yeah, it's two totally different worlds that I've kind of had half of my life dipped in both. And they've got their own things. And I think a lot of, what I was influenced by and the music and everything that I listened to had a lot to do with that. Up north, like you grew up in your high school, you listen to metal. That was you were a pussy if you didn't.
Yeah.
And
You listen to the
cool.
Prince? Fuck, get out of here. It's like you gotta hide stuff you're listening to.
Yeah, I remember like my wife is from here, from Georgia, and her and her friends find it hilarious. Like, I don't know any 90s country songs, like none at all.
Yeah.
Because like to me at that time, country was like Garth Brooks and Shania Twain. And I'm like, who the hell listens to that shit? Like, I want to go like, do some headbanging, maybe, kick some ass. Well, I don't know. But like, I didn't ever get into that. But everybody down here knows all these songs by heart, man, and they're stupid.
Well, it's just a product of wherever you grow up. And I think a lot of those people know those songs because that's what they probably played on the radio there and played at the high school dances and everywhere they were at, the Walmarts or anything. So it is interesting dynamic of where you do grow up for the landscape of music. Like, let's say if you grew up in like certain parts of America where it's probably just hip hop in the grocery stores and all that. So it's funny because really recently I've been talking about this a lot with guests. I'm at that age where back in the day, the radio stations would play whatever was good. So it would be, Earth, Wind and Fire, AC/DC, the Bee Gees, and then into say, that's why they call him the Streak. You remember that? Whatever was a hit song. It didn't matter skin color or genre, So that was kind of cool because I really got to pick up on so much different music growing up, which is really cool.
Yeah, that definitely. I mean, that doesn't happen at all now. But I don't even remember the last time I actually listened to the radio. Either really, there's not really a whole lot of stations that I would tune into these days. But there is a real. Like, it was eye-opening when I came down here, I remember, because I just had this preconceived notion about what country music was. And then I remember going up to there's like this little town up here, Dahlonega, and there's a little courthouse on the square, and they did like bluegrass jams on Sundays and Saturdays. And I went out there, and there were these old guys sitting there, and they were just absolutely fucking shredding. And I was like, holy shit, this is cool as hell, man. And I started getting into that. And then, I started kind of digging into some of the more serious country guitar players. And it was like a whole appreciation that I just had never developed before and never would have up there. So and it's interesting, but it's definitely shaped a lot of what I do and like a lot of what I think in my processes and ideas and layouts and designs and whatnot.
Well, it's funny to think about country music because when I was growing up, it was the Outlaws of Country. I went and saw the Highwaymen. So, you got the big wigs there. You've got Willie and Waylon and Johnny Cash and Chris Christopherson, and you have all of that old school country music. And then it goes through that full kind of phase like you're talking about of the 90s, which was more like a Def Leppard type of mentality of just pop country. And then it finally has come back to full circle, starting, I think, with some alt country, which really, really I got into, which was like Wilco and Jayhawks and all of that, all Lucinda Williams, that whole scene. And now we have just great stuff like Jamie Johnson, Stapleton, Sturgill, even flavors of Marcus King can get in there. So it's really unbelievable that, and it's kind of that mentality again of the outlaw country people of like, fuck the business. We play the music we want to play.
Yeah. And it's a ballsy move to make today when it's more difficult than ever really to not necessarily make it. I mean, you can get a lot more exposure a lot more easily these days, I feel like, but that just makes it all the more difficult for somebody to truly do what they want to do and actually experience like massive commercial success. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
And all of that music is geared around guitar. And as I talked about it on the Grover Jackson episodes, they've been trying to write off the guitar for decades. You know, the guitar is dead. The guitar is dead. The DJ is here. Electronic music. And I'm not one of those people that hates electronic music. So it doesn't bother me, but it does bother me when people just decide to print stuff that's not true. You know, the guitar is dead. Well, maybe the guitar didn't sell 4 billion of them like the 90s did when guitar guys did. But the guitar is bigger than ever now, especially because of COVID. Fender had its biggest year last year, and the guitar is never going away. It maybe the idea of what the guitar can bring you, meaning possible success, riches, and fame, that idea can be a little faded now. But people that pick up the guitar now may be playing it for the right reasons again, of like, I just love to play guitar.
Yeah, I really hope so. I mean, you're right too. There is more talent out there now, I think, than probably ever. And even so, you know, it's not the same as it used to be, where if you were the best fucking guitar player, like, you were famous and everybody knew who you were. Like, I know dudes that are insane and, like, you know, different levels of success, like all the way down to I know people who nobody's ever heard of before, who are some of the greatest players I've ever seen in my life.
Oh, well, look at YouTube and Instagram. They're loaded with these people, you know?
Yeah, they're everywhere, man. And like I remember I was in Nashville. This was probably about 2-3 years ago, and we were in one of those bars on Broadway. Who fucking knows what? I don't really have too many times I've been on Broadway and remembered, or probably wanted to remember what exactly I saw. But I remember we were in this little joint, man, and this guy walks in and he's got a, you know, Squire telly and like a shitty soft case gig bag, and has like a PV Bandit, yeah, like a single 12 Bandit, and puts it up on the stage, and I'm sitting there, you know, like my snobby ass is like, Jesus, what the hell is this going to be? Dude would have buried me. Like, and I was just like, God damn, like, that is the level of talent in this town trying to do something and get somewhere. That's nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I've said it a million times in the 9 years of this podcast, you can be the baddest guitar player on the planet, but if you don't know how to write a song, no one's going to know who the fuck you are, you know?
Yep. And a totally different skill set as well.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, that is just that is the truth. And I always tell people, and I said it when Eddie Van Halen passed away. Yeah, he's your guitar god. And yeah, he changed the world, but we wouldn't be talking about him the same way we did when he passed away if he didn't have, you know, 10 records of just monster songwriting, you know? Sure, he's fucking great. And sure, he is the next guy after Jimmy, but Jimmy had songs and Eddie had songs. And in between those dudes, there was a lot of people that had no songs.
Yep. That's the hardest thing to do. It's like that's the songwriting key. I feel like I've talked about with a lot of guys. Like, everybody wants to be different, and, you know, everybody wants to stand out somehow, but there's like an art to it. You gotta find a way to tell somebody something that they've never heard before, but speak it to them in their language.
Yep.
And that's a very rare thing.
All right, let's get into it. So we are here. Of course, the Grail is a celebration of all things handmade and artists and makers and creators. And I first come across your guitars from the great Marcus King. I'm out on the road. I'm not on the road, actually. He was on the road and I was backstage, and I said, what do you got this run? Because, we always talk guitars, and he's, I got this new one, man, from this guy. Check it out. And he broke out this guitar, and I was like, wow, what is that? And that's when I first hear about you. So what is your background on guitar building? And did you start in a band and then eventually get into building? How does this all happen?
Well, it kind of goes back to that regional location of upstate New York. A lot of people that aren't from New York State don't realize that there's a whole shitload of New York that ain't New York City. And especially when you get up in that central upstate region, like Irondequoit, Rochester and Buffalo and Canastota, and it's pretty desolate out there. I mean, it's just farms, and it's an older of the state, so there's not a lot of new development. There's no Guitar Center, Sam Ash, like none of that shit. I mean, I think the closest place I had to buy guitar strings was a record store that was like a 30-minute drive from my house.
Wow.
And so like there was nobody that worked on guitars, and that was all we did when I was old enough, probably 12 years old, starting to want to be in bands and everything, and just played music with a lot of different guys all the time. And so I just kind of had to figure out how to do my own maintenance. Like I remember getting like those little manual, like the Mel Bay kind of like, but it was, I forgot who it was, but it was like, guitar maintenance and setup, and, used to just figure out how they work. And then it kind of went to, I was in school and I was gigging a lot and paying a lot of bills by doing shows and, invite my friends out. I got to the point where I was like, man, like I had like a shitty Japanese Strat. Like I had a guitar, and like, it's funny to me now. Like I see like a lot of people and like a lot of like young guys and stuff that are like, they got like 30, like whatever. And I'm like, man, when I was 15, I had a guitar.
Yeah, same here. I had one guitar and one pair of sneakers.
Yeah.
Now everybody's got like a closet full of sneakers that they wear twice, or they don't wear, and they're just in the boxes, keeping them fresh and minty. And then they got like 9 guitars, and it's like, wow, like Jimmy Page he had 2 for a long time. I mean,
yeah,
3. He had a D18, a Telly, and a Les Paul. Jimmy Page.
Yeah, I don't even know if he had all of those at once either. There might have been like a
yeah.
But yeah, no, it's crazy, man. And but like it was a Strat, man, and like it was. I don't know how I ended up getting struck in the unfortunate position of having one guitar and it was a Strat. And I'm biased. Like, don't get me wrong, I own a Strat. I like Strats. They do a certain thing, but like that's not the guitar that I would want to have if I only had one guitar.
They're hard to play too. You got to be a goddamn good player, because those single coils and that, tremolo of the old Strat, especially a Japanese or a copy one, it's going to just battle you in all different ways. Tonal wise, staying in tune wise, all of that. I mean, I got a Strat when I was a kid, a fake one, and it didn't sound anything like AC/DC. I was like, this is out of here,
Yeah, dude, it's you're right. You got to fight them, and they whenever I sit down with one on the rare occasion, probably 4 times a year now, maybe I'll play them for like 3 hours. And I'm like, God damn, like these are so much fun. But like, it's just you got to play them differently, and there's just a lot of things that they won't do that I wanted to do.
It is the perfect body set. That's the ultimate body shape, though, for sitting on your body while you're playing live. There's nothing better feeling than a Strat. The way it's concaved on the back onto your belly, the way the headstock sits, everything about it is primo. I mean, Leo really nailed it, and he didn't even play. So that's wild, because the Telly is it's just a plank. Yeah. It's just a square plank with a shape. But with the Strat, he really gets sexy. I mean, with the the double cutaway and the way it cuts away, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it blows my mind still. Like I always, when I get in like guitar nerd talk, I'm like, it's fucking Leo Fender. Like that's amazing. Guy didn't know how to play guitar, and not only developed two of the most iconic guitars that are exactly the same still today. Nobody's really made them better. They've made them different. But like the amps, dude, like
the Fender Tweed Deluxe, the Tweed Bassman, the Tweed, high powered twin and the low powered twin. Those are nuts.
All of them. I would say the majority of my amps are vintage Fenders. I'm on like my one like collector nerd mission. I've abandoned most of them, but the only one I've maintained is I want every single model amp in the brown face lineup from 1962.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They're just fucking so good. And they just like, that's what, back to, the idea of guitar going away and why I don't think it will either is there's something that's not repeatable about guitar tone that you just can't do with electronic. Like you can come back the next day and turn on a computer and whatever you're doing or your synth or whatever and make the same exact sound. But like you power up an old tube amp, like the atmosphere, the humidity level is different. Like maybe one of the tubes have degraded to some degree from the day before. Like it's a sound you'll never like get again exactly the same way in like a moment in time. And I always really was fascinated by that. It's the same way with building and guitars as instruments themselves. Like we've talked about this, like there's just unicorns out there that like you can feel it, like they even unplugged, like the way that they give you feedback as you're playing them, you can feel it in your hands and your body, and you're like, God, there's just something about this thing. And that's the magic, dude. That's the magic of guitar that always keeps me coming back and hooked on it.
They're also, I believe this, and I've talked to a lot of people about this that play guitar. I believe that the guitar magically has some songs sitting in them. And as they sit up in the store ready to sell or be bought, a guy will come in and he'll strum it. And I talked to Greg from the Mother Hips about this, and I've talked to a lot of people, but recently him. You start strumming it, and before you could even leave, you're writing a tune and you're going, holy shit, I got to buy this. And that guitar might give you 10, 15, 20 songs, maybe 100, and you never get rid of it. It's weird. It's almost a chemistry thing of the guitar was right with you to bring out tunes. And a lot of guitars inspire me. So that's why I went through a lot of guitars. I would play them for a couple years, and then I'd be like, I kind of want to get into a Les Paul now. I'm going SG or Telly or Esquire, and they inspire you to pick it up, and the sounds inspire you to write different styles too.
Yeah, no, they totally do. It's like that's definitely a commonly known thing, I think, amongst guitar players, songwriters. I've joked about it before with people. Like I even think about it sometimes, like if I'm building something for somebody, like when they get it, I just wonder, I'm like, man, I wonder what songs I put in that thing. Like I don't even know.
Yeah.
The mystery airhead.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting thing to think about too. A new guitar built and some songs come out of it. It's like, wow, this thing's new, and it's delivering some inspiration into the planet already. And it's there's so many different magical moments that have to happen in music for it really to happen, especially when you look at bands, this guy just happened to move here, got a flat and couldn't leave. So then he met this dude at the guitar store while the guy was in there for a minute getting some strings, and this guy answered an ad on TV or on the magazine, and these 4 or 5 people come together, and then somehow they write music, and then they somehow get a record deal, and then they somehow get a hit, it's so many fucking things have to happen.
Yeah, and they all seem improbable most of the time too. It's wild.
That's why you can't ever really put it together. I mean, those boy bands are different because that's pro songwriters. They know how to write hits, and then they just hand it to some good looking dudes and they're, dance and stuff. That's different. But you can't just, when they have those shows like putting together the band or when they have those quote unquote super groups. And you got four guys together that are all incredible, but together they suck.
Yeah. Yeah. It is tough. Yeah. That's crazy to think about.
So you're learning some maintenance, and then how does it get into starting to build something?
So I was, I was saying I had the Strat and, I'd always had access to some kind of workshop or wood shop my whole life. And my father always was pretty handy building stuff. My grandfather, we always were doing stuff and fixing stuff around the house and making tables and stuff like that. So I already had, a pretty solid foundation of just basic carpentry. And so I found, I was probably on eBay, I think, something like that. I was like, oh shit, I can buy a body and a neck and kit and just make it damn good. Hell, this is like half the price of that thing. So I did a couple of those, and I remember one of them I did was a Les Paul, and I was, as I was putting it together, I'm
with a bolt-on neck.
No, it was a set neck. But I mean, it was one of those put the neck tenon into the hole and clamp it, glue it, and you're like, it's really kind of hard to fuck it up, but. People do. You go on the forums and you'd be amazed, man. Some people are like, I don't know what I did, but you messed up step 1 and 2, apparently. But yeah, man. So I kind of figured out all right, well, this ain't that hard. And, as I was, going further and further down the rabbit hole, seeing a lot of other custom builders out there even and there's a lot of them even still today they buy bodies from, so-and-so, they buy necks from so-and-so, they do some good finished work, cool, accessories and stuff, and mark it up and sell it. And
well, that's a lot like Orange County Choppers. I was talking to Jesse James about that. Those guys, the Tuttles, for years they weren't making anything; they were just assembling stuff. They were buying a frame from this catalog and a front end from this catalog and an engine from this catalog and rims here. So they weren't really fabricating anything. They were welding on some, spiders for a Spider-Man bike or whatever, but it was never, they didn't build stuff. So yeah, I get that,
Yeah. And that's really, I would say there's definitely some hurdles and some barriers to entry as far as building guitars from scratch on any decently sized scale. But I mean, if you're a guy with a drill and a jigsaw and a little hand router, you can crank out some guitars in your garage, really. And so I just started kind of going through these. I'd get one of these kits and I'd look and I'm like, shit, all right, this can't be that difficult to cut this neck out. How did they do this? And I just have to kind of sit and work stuff back, and I do some research as much as I could. I mean, I looked up and found all sorts of videos all the time and was always finding new stuff, but there's not really any prescriptive method out there as to how to do it, other than going to a school, and I didn't want to do that. I don't really like going to school that much. I mean, I went to 6 years of college. Maybe that's why I'm sick of that shit. But I also kind of felt in the back of my head, I always had this idea that, the people that were always the best at shit they just loved it. They didn't go to school to learn how to play guitar. The ones that are the best are they don't know they're the best. They don't know why they're the best. And they definitely did not go through much academic training to do so. And also I feel that kind of limits you. And I'm one of those people that needs to learn by just fucking destroying shit every possible way. And then being all right, I know how to do it now. Like I don't do that. Yeah. And like, but there's so many steps and layers is in the process of building the guitar, especially a set neck guitar. And that's not even counting, acoustics and semi-hollows. I mean, that's a whole other set of animals that you got to deal with. But I just started kind of reverse engineering this stuff, and I was doing a lot of repair work, and was doing restorations, and was doing a lot of old Gibson work, and just for fun on the side. And then I finally had when I moved after I got married, actually bought a house up here outside of the city. And I finally had space to have like a legit dedicated workshop so I was like, first damn thing, I'm building up this building out here. I'm going to have all my tools in one place. It's going to be awesome. We're out of this townhouse. Like, I got shit everywhere in the sun porch and stuff. And so I built a shop, and then just started doing scratch builds, figuring out like really, really fucking up a lot of expensive pieces of wood, and really just kind of, put my head down and barreled my way through it, man. And it was, I had the fortunate position of I've got a lot of good friends that are really good guitar players, and I've got a few friends locally, especially, who are the most anal, OCD, picky snobs about guitar, how a guitar feels, plays, sounds, like all that shit. So I just was, I would build stuff and I'd be like, I think this is pretty good, and then, hand it to one of them and they'd be like, nah, dude, this really sucks. And this is why. And so like, and I didn't have any, like hurt feelings about it. Like I want to know, like, but I also always had a really good idea of like what a great guitar felt like. I've got a lot of old stuff, and, there's those unicorns out there, and I know what they feel like immediately. And so like, I just took all of that and all the feedback that I would get from people and really just kind of pour it back into what I was doing. And, I mean, literally, like, it was a lot of, I can't tell you how many different ways I think over the years I've done fretwork, like probably 4 or 5 different methods that I've employed at some point throughout my guitar noodling career. And it just takes a while to get something like dialed in that's comfortable, that's repeatable, that also produces a final product that has your own kind of feel to it. I think it's like one of the hardest things to do as a band and writing songs, as a player, especially, is to have that thing where you hear, those notes coming through the speaker and you're like, that's fucking Mark's game. Like that's the uniqueness of it that I think everybody strives for, or any artist really strives for in anything that they do. So it took a while to get that, but I've got it now. I just I've noticed, even like over the builds that have come out, over the past year in quarantine, especially, I can pick them up, and I can, like, you can actually probably blindfold me and put one in my hands, and I'd be like, yes, I can just tell, because they feel the way that I want a guitar to feel. And it took a while to develop that.
At what point do you feel that you start to get it and start bringing the guitar around to maybe some pro players? Like, how does that all happen? Like, say, a Marcus King or Mastodon or Blackberry Smoke, these kind of guys. How does this all happen?
I knew the Atlanta music scene is pretty awesome, and like it's pretty tight knit, man. Like most people are pretty accessible. But I've always had, friends in bands, or played with so-and-so, or did this and that. And so like, we knew a lot of the local guys. There's a lot of local guys around here that you'll catch playing at Northside Tavern on like a Saturday, or used to anyway. And then like, they'd be out on tour next week with so-and-so. Like, there's a lot of players around here like that. So, I think it was Benji Shanks actually, who had I was like, man, like I really like you to try this thing out. Like Benji's one of the tastiest guitar players I've ever seen in my entire life. He like I learned a lot from him in watching him like come in and pick up a guitar and like plug it into an amp and like where's I'll come in and do it. I'd be like, all right, let's start it at like maybe about 7. Like I want to hear it break up, you know. Benji will come in and put the amp on like fucking 2. And you're like, what are you going to do with that? And he's like, I'm going to play the cleanest solo you ever heard in your life. And I'm going to hold the notes for about 34 seconds maybe. And you're going to wonder how the fuck I did that. And he's just got such touch and feel. And he's one of those anal OCD people that I was telling you about. Where he'll play something, he'll be like, man, I think there's kind of a little bit of a high fret, like right here, maybe like right around 6 or 7. And so he had, you know, started playing some of my stuff and was one of the people giving me feedback, and I was just taking it in. And, you know, Benji is really tight with Charlie Starr, Blackberry Smoke. And so, you know, I met Charlie and got Charlie onto a couple of them, and same thing. Charlie is a guitar player and has a fantastic collection of vintage guitars and fantastic taste. And so you know, I just kind of was shameless. I mean, I wasn't, you know, throwing guitars at people or anything, but I also just kind of put that nervousness aside of like, I didn't have anything riding on it, you know. It's like this wasn't like my do or die moment. I'm dropping my mixtape off at like the record company, or I'm getting fucking kicked out. Like it was, you know, something that I just genuinely really love to do, and had the luxury of being able to invest the time and the passion into doing it as best as I possibly could. So those guys really kind of got me started. And, you know, I mean, still to this day, I've got all my merchandise and everything runs through the Merch Mountain team, which is all Blackberry Smokes. Britt Turner runs that whole operation. You know, they do all sorts of stuff for the band and all the other bands and everything. So like those guys really, and not knowing me from Adam either, we're just like the coolest, like nicest people. And, you know, we all got along like great, like right off the bat, like they're all super down to earth. So yeah, like they just kind of took me in and were like, oh, let's just try to sell your shit, man. Like your guitars are cool. So, so from there, man, it just kind of took off. Like I don't advertise. I mean, literally the only thing I do is Instagram, and I'm a slacker on that as much as one could possibly be. So, it's just kind of word of mouth. That's really all it's been. It's like so-and-so, I got so-and-so got in touch with me. I played so-and-so's whatever at this place and I want one, and, or an introduction or something like that. And that's cool, man. Like that's, I tell people, you know, like I don't do sponsorship deals. I don't do, you know, any of that shit because like I'm a small craftsman. Like I'm not a corporation. I'm not trying to. I mean, cool, great. It's awesome that, you know, the guitars are out there being advertised, but deep down, I don't care. Like that's not what matters to me. And what matters to me though is like I'm like, if I want you to play this guitar because you fucking love this guitar. And that's the only reason I want you to play it. I don't ever want to walk into a room and like see you pick it up or something like, oh, it's here. Like, don't fucking do that. Like, if you don't love it, tell me, and it's fine. Like, that's my only goal. So, you know, it's I say I've been like on you know, I think every builder probably does. It's like goes on Reverb and they're like, man, what's for sale out there that I made, you know?
Yeah. I saw the Explorer recently, remember? And I was like,
yeah.
Hey, my buddy wants to buy this. Is this a good one? Or is it like early when you didn't know what you're doing? Like, that's a clunker. Get out of there. But you were like, if I remember right, that's a good one. Grab it.
Yeah, dude, that was a sweet guitar. There's but yeah, and like I don't really have that many out there to begin with. But I'll see one every now and then. And if it's like a guitar that went to a dealer, like that wasn't necessarily something I did specifically for a person that, ordered it. So like, I can't, that is what it is. Cool. Like someone did like the next shape. But like when you see one that like you did for somebody that like you spent a lot of time on, there's a lot of back and forth, and you're like, fuck, you didn't love that. It's like, so like it kind of gets at you a little bit. You're like, man, what did I do? Like, so it's but I mean, dude, it is what it is. It's a guitar. People that sell guitars like can't get upset about it. But that's how invested I feel like you have to be to really love it and to really do it well enough to make it that good.
I noticed one thing. Of course, I'm a Korina freak, and that was my favorite thing that you did. Once I saw Scott Holliday's Korina V at the Bon Scott tribute, I was like, this thing's incredible, man. And I love the Korina Explorers. I've always been fascinated by Korina guitars. The weirdest thing that they built those Gibson back then. It's so radical to think in the 58 that some guy would, hey, check out this fucking weird shaped rocket. It's my guitar. The other guy goes, I got one that's like a boomerang, with a fucking, in the winter we can use it to shoot hockey pucks. It's like, and this shit is what I love about it is they are so radical for the time, and they still, when somebody busts out a V or an Explorer, at a show and they're playing, especially a Korina, I'm like, oh, I immediately start looking like, oh, Korina V, a Korina Explorer, especially like when Rick from Cheap Trick was playing the Hamer Korinas all through the 80s and that stuff, where do you get all your knowledge about how that V, like we talked about it when you were making the V, how it's made, and they don't do it like that anymore, and that shaving down and that the way the neck goes into the body and all that. Where did you get that info, and how did you practice that without just ruining shit? Did you practice on a shitty wood first?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I think the first couple I did on like, I think I did a poplar body or something like that. But no, I've got some V's with some fucked up neck heels, buddy. Like, trust me, like they're like the first like 1, 2 I look at, I've got them here actually. And I'm like, oh man, like that's, I mean, it looks like the heel of a guitar, but it don't look like anything like it should. I got to play, I played both of those guitars, the Explorer and the V, the 58s. And
who had them?
One of them I can't say. One of them was at Songbirds in Chattanooga, actually. Okay. Marcus played that guitar too, in fact. It was pretty amazing. And I remember the neck of those, the V especially, didn't really feel much like the neck of any other Gibson from that era that I'd played. It was a D shape, but it was almost like flat on the backside. It was a weird carve, I remember. And then like the heel, I remember too, like there was something about it, like it was just like super petite. And I'd never seen anything like it. Like there was just, and it was seamless. I mean, you can't fuck up a joint on a Korina guitar. Like you can't throw some wood filler in there and be like, all right, we're going to go over it. Like every single cut, every single join, every single little tiny chisel shave you do is going to show because you're just doing it in natural finish. And I was just like blown away by this cool design. And like, as I knew, the general construction process and everything for most of those set neck solid bodies, it was a design that was simpler construction wise in my mind. And also like much cleaner and like much, it was genius. And it's funny, like a lot of those tenons, like people have this reverence, you know, for all those like late 50s guitars. And trust me, I got a few of them that are fucking amazing. I played a lot that are really terrible too.
Yeah.
Like that's like a shitty 54 gold top that's 30 grand is still going to be 30 grand. Like but they, all those designs, like all those mortise and tenon designs, like those guys were like furniture makers and shit. Like, you know, there weren't
what were their names?
I'm talking about the mortise and tenon joint, like a neck joint.
Yeah, that's a navy. Oh, God.
Yeah. So like a lot of that stuff, like those long tenon designs and stuff, like it wasn't like a, you know, oftentimes like a master, you know, violin maker coming. It was like dudes that knew how to make furniture, and you know, a lot of the designs worked and endured. And like in some cases, like the budget, like the Les Paul Jr. Neck joint, like my number one guitar, right, is 57 Les Paul Jr. is my favorite fucking guitar in the world.
Great guitar. It's amazing, man. And it's
and the neck joint is totally different from like a carved top, like a burst standard. And it was kind of like done for budgetary reasons. Like it was cheaper. They didn't have to cut into the side of the neck and like put the angle in it.
It's got that shelf, right?
It's literally like the pocket for the neck is the shape of the whole fucking bottom of the fretboard there, and then they just drop it in. And but like the way that guitar translates vibration and the way it resonates is totally different from a Les Paul standard. And I loved the way that they felt. And it was just like, that was kind of an accident. They were like, oh, we're going to do these things. They're going to sell them for $99. Let's just do them this fast, cheap way. And then they turned out fucking awesome. But yeah, man, the V really took a while that I would say of all the guitars to really perfect that old style way that they did it. And like, they're still, I mean, they're all done by hand. So like, no matter what, you know, there's going to be some slight variation in between all of them, because I'm doing them with like a rasp and a file and sandpaper.
Yeah.
They're not done, you know, with any like computer routers or anything. But yeah, that's the fun. That's my favorite part of it is carving necks.
Is the Explorer neck joint different than the V?
Mm-hmm. The V, the way it lines up, the whole back side of the neck tenon is flat and it just slides into the pocket. But the heel block for the V, it starts as like a little tab, and you literally glue the neck and it sits flat against that tab. So you kind of got like a stair step that you start with. And the whole trick is blending the back of the body into the back of the neck.
Right.
So it all looks like one seamless piece. Whereas an Explorer, when you cut the neck tenon, you cut under the backside of the tenon and the whole thing like sits flat on top of the body. Yeah, it's a totally different design for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, like I said, back in the day, I think a lot of those guys didn't really know why they were doing what they were doing either. They figured it out and it worked.
I mean, it must have been like one guy was in charge of the Explorers and he knew how to do this type of neck pocket. And maybe the guy that was doing the V was like you said, from a furniture world or whatever. And he did that type of, I mean, cause there's no rhyme or reason at Gibson. It was just kind of like, get it built.
Yeah. There's definitely like some Gibson historian listening to this. Like, it was fucking Charlie Jones and Tim so-and-so from C.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. But the design of those two guitars overall, like you said, like they were ballsy. Like it was insane. Ted McCarty had proved that. I mean, God bless him. I mean, because those guitars flopped hard. I mean, they weren't cool until 20, 30 years later.
They flopped hard. That's why there's only, I think, 110 or something, or I don't know, such a minimal number of those, you know, the V and I think less Explorers. I'm not sure. I used to know all that shit perfect when I really cared. But, had to clear that shit out for jokes.
Yeah. That bit of knowledge was not really getting me anywhere in life.
Yeah.
But no, you're right.
It did for a while, when you're
It did.
talking to people, like if you're talking to Kirk Hammett and you know what the fuck you're talking about, then his ears perk up and he knows you know what you're talking about on V. So it was great to really study that stuff when I was engulfed in songwriting and guitar playing and all that. It was just kind of like, God damn this thing. And I owned, I think in the late 90s, the Explorer and the V reissues, the historic ones with the white guards. And I also had the first ones, the black guards, the 80s ones,
Yeah, they did those weird, like the V's. I remember the ones that I've seen are like the grain of the wood it doesn't come together at that diagonal in the center. Like they go straight up,
right?
Which is weird. Like, cause it actually uses a lot more wood to do it that way. It doesn't look right. So yeah, that was just the one. They did do them again, I think, in the, I don't know, late mid 2000s for a brief period of time.
And I heard they've coming out with them again this year, like super high dollar ones.
Yeah. And they're just, they're a different animal. Like Korina as a wood was just a really weird, interesting choice. And I see the economics behind it, because at the time, and if there was anybody going to be making an effort to source it in large quantities, it's where it comes from. It's pretty plentiful. Like it's not that rare of a tree. It's just difficult to get it because nobody stateside uses it for anything. Literally, I don't know what the hell anybody uses it for other than guitar building, and most of it's coming out of West Africa. So it's lots of times hard to find, some sort of timber importer who's got the balls to be like, I'm going to give this guy $20,000 and hope the hell this container of Korina shows up and it's good. Because the other thing about Korina is it's the limba tree that Korina comes from. Korina is technically white limba, but there's also black limba, but it's not a different kind of tree. It's all in the same tree. So when you cut down a limba tree, there's some portion of black and some portion of white within it. And the smaller quantity obviously is the pure white stuff, but that's also generally most kind of open grained, lightweight, really resonant, the musical tap tone type wood, whereas the black is usually a lot more dense. And how they figured this out at that point in time, that quickly, especially, I have no idea. But it's such an amazing wood. It's easy to work with. It's kind of straddles somewhere between mahogany and like swamp ash to me. It's got sort of both of it. It's like a little brighter than mahogany. It's not as snappy as swamp ash is though. And it's gorgeous. And it's ironic too. Like you said, you always notice seeing somebody with like a Korina Explorer or a Korina. It's like the most plain ass guitar possible. It's like that's wood colored wood with a white pick guard. Like,
yeah. But there was something about it that became definitely in my love of Art Deco and mid-century architecture and mid-century furniture and all that. It definitely has that family to me of like, oh, well, if you got a mid-century house, the Korina V would make sense right next to the weird fucking table and crazy couch. And so it has to do with a lot of things with me. It has to do with Art Deco. It has to do with being radical and taking a shot, the balls of some guys to say, yeah, make that in the conservative world of late 50s America.
Yeah. The Explorer, especially to me, like the Explorer was like the Black Sabbath of guitars. Like it was with that, I think like oftentimes I play this little game of myself. Like, man, I wonder what it was like to put on Led Zeppelin 1 for the first time and just hear like, babe, I'm going to leave you, and be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And the Explorer must have been the same. And that was like way before that too. And people must have been like, what in the hell? You expect me to put that damn thing on and play some skiffle with it? Like, what the hell do I do with that thing? Like,
yeah.
But it is, admittedly, it's my favorite guitar design of all time. It's perfect.
We've talked about that, and it is right up there with the strap. When you strap it on, the way the headstock and then the back of the body balance and sit there to where it's just perfect position for your arm and everything. And also, I was a very early Sammy Hagar fan, pre Van Hagar. I never got into Van Hagar, but I loved Sammy Hagar in his solo era up to the Standing Hampton record. So Danger Zone, he's on the cover with that red Explorer. And I do believe it was like walnut and he had it painted red because he's Mr. Red. But he played the shit out of this red Gibson Explorer. And I was just fucking in love with it. Then Hetfield comes out with the white Explorer. I'm in love with Hetfield's Explorer. Then he gets the ESP black one with the snakes in the fretboard. I'm loving that. I'm loving Phil Collin with his Ibanez 3 pickup one with a Kaler. I'm loving the Iron Maiden, Adrian Smith, Destroyer 2. All of these spin-offs of these Explorers. And I do realize, even though I got the V, the Explorer is the guitar for me as far as like the real radical. And also the crazy myth around these two guitars of the Futura with the Gumby headstock. Were they made? Were they not made? Are they prototypes? Are these fakes? All of that. So there's just this whole beautiful mythology around the Explorer and the V and the Futura, you know?
Yeah, it's yeah, you're right. There's like an ancient aliens aspect to it that just keeps you hooked the whole time. And like, but it's weird because the part of well, I won't say it's the most important part. It's a very important part of what a guitar needs to have, for me at least, is, you know, a lot of people get hung up on like, oh, like, you know, like, does it have you know, this, and this, or like, can I do this? And like, I more so than anything want to put that guitar on, and if I'm going on stage, feel like a bad motherfucker.
Yeah.
And just have that inspiring confidence of being like, this is a bad fucking guitar. And everybody that's ever worn an Explorer looks like a bad motherfucker. Like it just,
especially Hetfield. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah, like the low Explorer, man. I'm like, he looks like he could just kick the shit out of me by right now. I don't know why. It's just because of that. And but even like Alan Collins, man, like that's just totally different style too. And it's just like, Jesus, man, like that's that when I was a kid was just the coolest shit ever.
His with that shit fucking, you know, that whammy, the shittiest version of it, you know?
Yeah, the Maestro or the Liar or whatever.
Yeah.
Still looks fucking badass. Like it's just, there's something about them, man, and they're like you said, the ergonomics, like sitting down playing them. I think they're like one of the most comfortable electrics ever. It's like an acoustic almost. You can rest your elbow up there.
Yeah.
And then
the headstock is God. The headstock is God. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest thing about designing a guitar. There's like 3 headstocks in the whole world of guitar. You know, you got the kind of Gibson-y Les Paul wavy one. Then you've got the Fender Telly and the Fender Strat. And then here comes the incredible hockey stick one. I mean, just that choice too of them to do that hockey stick instead of just a Les Paul headstock on both those.
Yeah. It's a perfect design. And it's just like, a lot of the stuff that I do, I mean, obviously I'm inspired by Gibson. I mean, my old Gibsons are my favorites. But there's, a lot of things about old Gibsons that I thought that I'd like to be done differently. So I've changed a lot of stuff and, everything, I mean, make everything my own, but the Explorer is one of those guitar, man. You can't fucking change that shape. As soon as you change that shape, it's destroyed. Like it just doesn't look as good. And it's like, it's the perfect canvas too for doing like custom finishes and stuff. Just the way that whole lower bout just hangs out, like it just shows off custom colors well. I mean, you can throw a big ass Bigsby on it. It just looks killer. And I've never seen an Explorer that I was like, that sucks.
I even love the Hamers with the binding on them. Those fucking knocked me out, dude. With the binding on them, you know?
Yeah. I just did one that's for myself actually. That's double bound, top and back, and the top is it's like a Trans Am. It's a GM color, Brentwood brown metallic. It's a 78 Trans Am Firebird. It's
you got it there?
Yeah.
Let's see that fucking thing.
All right, I'm gonna grab it.
Oh man, look at that shit, dude! Wow.
Yeah, it's
wow.
Yeah, that gold.
That's fucking beautiful, dude. 60s knobs. Oh, Les Paul 60 knob. Like the
60 knobs. I got the B5
inlay on the fretboard.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Trapezoid.
Trapezoid. Yeah.
Check the back.
Okay. Whoa, you did a burst. Like almost.
It's Korina, man. It's solid Korina.
Oh, yeah. God damn. That's cool, man. Look at that.
Yeah,
shit, dude.
This is one of the things though that like I get these ideas in my head of I get inspiration on designs and stuff from all sorts of places. But this is one of those, I told like 7 people, like, man, you want to explore? Like, I got this idea. And everybody's like, yeah. And I'm like, it's fine. Fuck y'all. I'm going to do it for myself. Yeah. And then I do it. And all of a sudden people are like, shit, that damn finish. And I was like, I told you, gold brown, baby. It looks good.
Yeah, that's fucking great with the binding, dude. Oh, man, that's juicy, dude.
Yeah, I love it.
As Angus would say, that's a cracking guitar.
It's my favorite. Yeah. It's my favorite right now, man. It's funny. It's like my second or third that I've owned. You'd think I'd own a million, but I can't. Like the last one I had somebody offer me a bunch of money for it. And I was like, all right, fine. I can make another one.
Let's talk about where you got this word, because there's 2 things I loved about working with you. And one is your ordering process is incredible for a boutique builder. A lot of times I'll be dealing with these people and they're just scatterbrained, but they're amazing at building what they build. But you have this cool kind of hang tag that has all your desires laminated on this Mr. Banker kind of cool ordering sheet that comes when you get the guitar. It comes with it. I love that because you can select the fretboard, the color, the woods, the electronics, the pickups, the tuners, the tremolo or hardtail, anything. Of course, most builders have that, but it's all right there laid out, so there's no mistakes. I loved doing that with you. But what I wanted to ask is, where did you start finding this Korina and Brazilian rosewood and stuff like that? Because all that stuff is not, you can't buy it anymore, correct?
I mean, you can. You can buy. I mean, Korina is not that difficult to find, but it's not easy to find in large quantities.
Right.
So this is one of the real interesting aspects about guitar building in general. I mean, the big guys have to deal with this on a larger scale than I do, but also on the flip side of that, being a small boutique shop, it's almost harder to find stuff in smaller quantities because, and if you do, it's way more expensive.
Yeah, because they want you to go, I got this wood, but you got to buy like 700 yards of it or whatever.
Yeah, and especially something as specific as Korina, this guy's going to make an investment and get a container load of it. He's like, well, I got to find, a shitload of luthiers that want Korina, because who the hell is what are they going to do with it? So I've made some really good connections. It took a while to really kind of build up some of these connections, but that's a whole other industry, like the exotic wood trade, that is fascinating to me. I know guys I know this one guy, you'd love him. He's from Missouri. He has a sawmill in Belize and started out by diving in these rivers in Belize. So Belize was British Honduras in like the 50s.
Yeah.
Pulling up these old mahogany trees that the logging companies had cut, and they'd float them in the river and they sank. He'd go dive into these jungle rivers and pull up these trees, and guys like been out in the jungle going on like spirit journeys with like the native tribes to like get their permission to harvest like Bolivian rosewood and stuff. Like there's this whole weird pirate trade to this stuff. And, but it's, everybody does everything legally. Brazilian rosewood, obviously you can't harvest anymore. And even like the free movement of Brazilian rosewood importing, exporting is very difficult to do, because you've got to prove with the whole CITES export and convention process now, you've really got to prove where it came from and that it was harvested before 1992 or whenever that legislation went into effect.
Jesus.
So it's tough. I mean, you can find it. If you want Brazilian rosewood, you can get Brazilian rosewood. To buy like a Brazilian rosewood fretboard blank, I know where to get them. I mean, they're $400. Wow. And so like, that's as much money as a lot of people spend on a guitar, like that stuff is difficult to find. I have a nice little private cache that I happened upon, like, this is my American Picker story. Like that one baseball card that I found, that one year, like,
yeah,
a guy got in touch with me that was a mutual friend of Benji and Charlie, and said, hey, I got this friend. He's a great guitar player, really needs a guitar. I think he's got a lot of Brazilian rosewood. And I was like, all right, tell him to bring it on down. So this guy shows up with a truck bed full of fucking Brazilian rosewood. I mean, I'm talking true dimensional 2x4s, 8 feet long. And I'm looking at this.
I saw it. I was like, what the fuck?
Oh yeah, you did see that before I did all that work on it. Yeah. Yeah, that was like the mother load, and the story's insane. It was this guy's great grandfather, I think, owned a sawmill in Belize in the 1940s and was doing all these exotic hardwoods. And this Brazilian rosewood was cut, milled, and shipped up here specifically to be used as flooring for some guy's cabin he built in Asheville, North Carolina.
Wow.
And I don't know where it is. And I'm like, dude, if you've got some records, we should buy that house, rip out the floors, and fucking burn it down. I don't care. Like, there's a motherload of Brazilian rosewood as a floor in a house somewhere up here.
So that was the leftover that wasn't used for the floor?
Yeah, the guy's grandfather had it in his barn for the longest time, and I think he restored old antique tractors and had been using it, like cutting blocks of it and used like motor mounts in the tractors, and was like, it's real tough. And I was like, yeah, it's fucking, wow. It is. But it was, so yeah, it's like 1940s harvest, old, I mean, some in the variety of it, there's, like I've shown you the different, there's the swirly, crazy grainy stuff, and then like the straight boards. And it's, once you've worked with a lot of it, I remember I used to be like, man, nobody can tell the difference, really. You get a good piece of Indian rosewood and nobody can tell the bullshit, dude. I'll tell you immediately. There is for the upcharge. I as a guitar consumer prior to working with it would have possibly been like, I don't know if it's worth it.
Right.
Having worked with it and having to build as many guitars out of it as I have, it's fucking worth it, dude. Like it is it's a big upgrade. It's the feel of it. Like it's like ebony. It's very close to ebony.
Similar tone of ebony. It really is, huh? Because I mean, I love ebony. I love those SG3 pickup custom ones with the ebony and the cool diamond inlay on the headstock. But tonal wise, when you really think about it, I think it matters big time on the fretboards. I always did think, because it keeps it warm instead of bright, especially on those Strat slab boards. It was vital, I thought. And then there's no denying a Martin D45 Brazilian. There's just no denying those things. They are cannons.
Yeah.
And with Les Pauls, 59 Les Paul, 60 and 58, that whole thing of like some are duds, which is true. I've played probably 5 Brazilian old Martins, 30s, late 30s, 40s Martins, all of them killer.
Yeah, there are no duds. Yeah.
There are no duds.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got a thing, man. It's got, like you said, it's songs and old guitars, Brazilian rosewood. It's a shame that it was over harvested to the point that it was, because I mean, fuck furniture, man. Like it should have been used exclusively for instrument making, and it really does impart a different sound, a feel. Like it feels differently, it reacts differently.
It's squishy. It's squishy, man. It's weird when you play like a Brazilian rosewood telly fretboard, and you play that for a couple hours, it gets like squishy, man. I can't explain it, but it has this nice comfort and gooey weird thing to it, man, with those clay dots and shit.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a much oilier variety of rosewood than Indian. Indian, when you work with it, it's a lot. It likes to chip a lot more. It's a lot. It feels a lot more brittle. And then there's a smell, dude. I mean, the smell is unmistakable. Like Brazilian sawdust smells like vanilla. Ooh. And Indian, I mean, it smells like Indian. I don't know what the hell it smells like, but not that.
There was an era of Fender Strats coming out of the custom shop in the 2000s where the fretboards were tan. They were fucking tan. That Indian rosewood was just light brown. It looks horrible. I mean, Of course we want it to sound good, but also when your eye is so used to the dark, like that chocolate black hash that you get, that's the oily black hash. That's how I always describe it. The blonde Lebanese hash against the black hash. I'm always going to go for the black hash. Always.
Yeah, man, you're right. It's I don't know. I mean, I think again, it goes back to the availability of wood, because I, for the longest time, assumed like, well, the rosewood's gone. I mean, like shit, everybody's talking about how it's gone. Everybody's moving to like Richlight or these composite materials. And then I realized like, well, shit, if you're buying in, decent quantities, like you're not buying container loads of rosewood. Well, yeah, you can find good shit. I mean, even like I don't use any, I use Indian. I mean, I like Indian too, but I don't use any Indian that's not like, you look at my Indian boards, most people are going to have a very difficult time telling. I mean, I don't get that shit. And I don't have to, because I can get away with being picky because I'm doing stuff in smaller quantities.
Right. Yeah. You're not making 1,000 guitars a month. I get it. So you're like, oh, here's 20 good pieces,
Yeah. And I mean, it's a shame, man. I tell people all the time, like I burn so much scrap wood. Like I feel terrible about it. But I'm inundated with it, dude. Like I've saved as much of it as any possibly, like my wife is gonna fucking kill me if I have any more. Like I've just like rooms of scrap wood that I'm like, that's a nice piece of Korina. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it. It's like too small for anything, but it's pretty good size still. And but with the Brazilian, man, I mean, I've got like a box of that, and I don't let a crumb of it go to waste, dude. Like if I give like a little, I just did a V-Bird today. I did a truss rod cover out of it, and I did the jack plate out of it. Oh. And I'll get like a little corner that's like a scrap. And I was for the longest time been throwing them in a bin. And the other day I was like, I'm going to make some damn guitar picks out of those. So I started making these Brazilian guitar picks and gave them to a couple of my buddies that are, flat pick bluegrass players. And they were like, man, these sound great. And I was like, shit, I might be onto something. I've never done it before. I think I've heard of it, but hell, makes sense.
I don't know what you can say and what you can't say, but can you talk about the Gibson deal that went down across all the builders a few years ago, or can you not talk about that? Either way is fine with me.
Yeah, I can talk about it.
I want to bring up one thing before we get into this. I was growing up in the 70s. Ibanez was sued. There's the famous Ibanez lawsuit series. They're incredible guitars, especially the I'm not too big of a fan of the Les Paul one, but the Strat and the Explorer and the V are unreal.
Yeah.
Lawsuit. Then there seemed to be an era of Hamer, and Hamer was making identical looking Explorers and Vs, and then Dean guitars were doing the same. And I'm just talking about Explorers and Vs because it seemed that everybody else was shut down making any kind of shapes. Now, what happens here? A new guy takes over at Gibson and says, hey, we're going to shut down everybody that's copyright infringements or patent infringements. What is this?
Well, I think every builder this is where it kind of begins, is like you said earlier, like there's 3 headstock designs, because as much as people strive to make a completely new guitar design, 95% of the time it's just ugly.
I think the only people that did it were like Olympic, like if you think about it.
Yeah, like, how many Parker Flies are you seeing out there today? Like it's just, and that was a successful one. And it's because fucking guitar players are like fickle as hell, man. I mean,
Paul Reed Smith got it. He got in there,
Yeah.
He got in there. But the first popular one was kind of a spin-off of the Hamer double cutaway meets a Les Paul Jr. double cutaway. I'm talking about the Santana Yellow. That was the one that really hit. But his actual shape, like the one John Mayer plays, that's pretty original, and that was hard to get in there. You're right. There only are 3 headstocks, but there's only like 7 shapes.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, it's just so. But people, as much as I hear the guitar buying public, and these aren't like customers or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like reading like reviews and like chat forums and shit. People are always like, man, that's the same old thing. Shit up, just nothing new. But then something new comes out and they're like, that's fucking ugly. I hate it. And you're like, well, what do you want? Like, so I kind of, I never wanted to be somebody who did replica, and I'm still upfront about that. Like, I get a lot of people are like, hey, I heard you can do a replica, whatever. And I was like, no, I don't do replicas. Like, I don't want to deal with the replica clientele, honestly. Like, I feel like that's just copying somebody's work. And yes, I mean, doing these to a degree is the same, but I'm not sticking to a formula necessarily of, there's my own feel and kind of vision and everything. And so Gibson, after, Henry was gone, it was taken over. JC and Cesar are kind of the 1 and 2 guys there, faces of the company now. And I think everybody kind of remembered that whole, what was it? Play Authentic, the Play Authentic Gate video came out.
Oh yeah. Right.
And it was at that point in time when I had just kind of started working with Brent Hinds, and had some pictures of him out there. And, it was a guitar I make called the Red Tail. It's an offset guitar. It's a double horn cutaway. It's got, similar lines, I guess, to like a non-reverse Firebird, but people started noticing it, and Gibson had started, sending out letters at that point in time, and with that whole campaign. And I think it's everybody at that point in the building community had kind of like considered it a rite of passage, like, oh hell, like you got a C&D from shit. I got one from Fender, last year, and it cost me $8,000 in attorney fees, like, and so like there's always like this mood of disdain towards the mothership, I feel like, but I never really had that. I feel like a lot of people with Gibson especially, there's a lot of people who just love to hate on Gibson and just criticize everything that they do. And I mean, they're like any other company, like they had some shit times, but like at the end of the day, man, like all of the guitars that I fucking love are old Gibsons. Like, yeah. It is what it is, man. Like I am a Gibson guy and always will be. And I just love everything about them. So like, I was doing, what I was doing, and obviously my love of vintage Gibsons influenced that a lot. I mean, like my Leslie guitars are literally like, I dissected the neck joint. I'm at 57 Junior. Like there's something fucking magical about this thing. Like, how do I make it like this again? How do I make guitars that are this good? And so it was more of, like my love and wonder about that era of guitars. So I had reached back out to the company, rather than, I think a lot of people either like don't reply and, just kind of like go cower away and don't do anything. Or a lot of people like get an attorney. And I was like, you know what? Like I'm a respectable professional. Like I know how to compose an email. I deal with attorneys and accountants and bankers and shit all the time. So I'm just going to write to the CEO. I'm like, why the hell not? And, I reached out and I was like, hey, like I don't want to, have any sort of problem. And I'd love to just talk to you guys. Like, what can I do? Maybe we can change some stuff around and, whatever I can do to, make you guys okay with it. Cause I don't want to stop building guitars. Like I love doing it. And so they reached back out and they proposed this whole idea of, like, hey, we'll kind of license it to you. Because I think they rightly and smartly realized at that point in time, like there are a lot of guys like me who are really just like artisans. Like I don't want to run a fucking guitar factory. Like I don't want to run a guitar. I don't have any employees and I don't want any employees because as soon as this feels like fucking managing a career or a job to me, it just sucks. It's something I have to do, and it's like it's a grind. And like then I feel like anything that I'm making is not going to be as good because I'm just not going to have the love for it that I do.
Right.
And I think that they realized that, and they were like, "This, I mean, he's not a threat." Like I can't really make more than like 75 guitars a year. And that's like me absolutely killing myself. So like, that's one of their dealers. Like, it's not like I'm going to take the company down.
So what do? Do you pay a fee each year?
Yeah, it's a licensing fee. It's just a small amount of royalty. But I mean, I really only use, as far as like the true shape, the Explorer, obviously. I mean, it's
of course
it's that you can't be messed with. And the V, my other stuff, my Firebird stuff, my headstock and everything is different, and it's a neck through. But it's a very different design, and like the other stuff that I'm making now, like the V Bird, like it is the general shape, but I mean, it's not that's like its own thing. I mean, it's not anything that exists. So,
well, it's like the auto industry. I mean, You got Cadillac and Lincoln, Camaro and Firebird and all the cars now, man. As soon as one car comes out, say this year we're doing square body. Also, it seems like all the car BMW, everybody's square body all of a sudden. VW, BMW, Audi. I don't know. It's almost like they got spies. You go to the auto show, you go, oh well, shit. Everybody's making this shape this year, which is wild.
Fuck, we did circles. Ja.
I think the thing what really is weird to me about guitar world is the drama that goes along with it, which is really bizarre to me. The drama between the player and, like you said, oh, fuck Gibson, they fucking suck. Well, don't buy them.
Yeah.
Don't fucking buy them. I don't get it. It's like, we're lucky they're still around.
Yeah.
In 2021, or Fender's still around. If you don't like them, just go buy a vintage one. And if you don't have the money for that, really dig into Paul Reed Smith or something. It's really weird how people and 99% of them never even get on stage. These computer armchair warriors, they don't get on stage. They don't write songs. They're just in their room.
Yeah, and it's just this is a very unique thing, I think, not only about the music gear industry, it's about the music industry as well. There's a lot of non-professional people, I feel like. There's a lot of artists, and most of the time, as a general observation, people who are really, really super talented with something art specific are usually not good with business and like day-to-day management and that kind of really culminates in the music industry, especially where you don't have a Harvard MBA who's the tour manager. It's like, oh man, this is Ricky. Like, he worked for the backline company over here. Like, he's a good guy. Like, he's friends with my cousin. And it's the same. It's not the same in the gear industry. I mean, there's brilliant people and a lot of really innovative ideas and stuff, but there's a lot of that in the more artist craftsman side of it. I, however, have been on both sides of the coin and completely understand the fact that all of these entities, including Gibson, are a corporation. They're going to do what a corporation does, make money. Yep. They're going to protect their means of making money. And these guys that bought Gibson have one asset that is of extreme value, and that is their intellectual property. Yeah. So if they are not the only ones making these guitars, they're losing out on sales for them, and they're going to fucking protect it. And nothing you or I do bitching about it and whining is going to change it. So, let's figure out a way to coexist. And I'm cool with that, man. I honestly think it's cool as shit. 15-year-old me, thinking about just wanting Jimmy Page's Les Paul and I'm like, oh, cool. I'm partner with Gibson. It's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I always look at Gibson and sometimes I feel like when you're on the outside, you look at it, you just go how are they not seeing this is wrong? When the one dude was in there and he's just buying all these fucking companies and we're getting away from guitars, 5 years ago. And you're like, what's going on here? But I do think that Tom Murphy, and I truly believe this, I believe that Tom Murphy is the absolute savior of Gibson in my eyes, as far as building something when it came to those aged Murphys and Fender doing the relics. I think that really saved them to not just be just dwindle away, because all of a sudden it was they're going to try to do some quality. And every couple of years they re-up the 59. Of course, we know they're going to say this one's the ultimate now. We scanned this and lasered and sent it to the moon. And, but at least they're trying. compared to 70s Gibson and Fender, where it was just polyurethanes and, no cloth wiring and just fucking no quality control or whatever. Like I said, you can comb the stores for years and you could find the ultimate R9 reissue. They're out there. I had one and sold it. Unfortunately, it was a 96 Murphy. Wish I still had it. You can find your ultimate Jimmy Page guitar and never play another thing, but also the beauty of going to somebody like you and having someone hand build your dream guitar like it was the 50s at Gibson when they weren't, churning out a zillion guitars. And don't get yourself fucking late night reverb rabbit holes. Turn all the internet off and just start doing your own patina on that fucking guitar. In 10 years, you're going to have a masterpiece guitar, man, that just you will not part with, and that's what you're building right now. You're building the old world.
Yeah. It's and I gotta say, like, it makes a difference. Like, the guys that are running Gibson now are guitar players and guitar collectors, and like some of the new shit I've played of theirs. Like, I've played a couple specials recently that were fucking good guitars, man. Like,
for $14.99.
Yeah,
I played the Pelham Blue SG special.
Yep.
And I thought it was I told Marin right away, I go, holy shit, dude, you got to get one of these. That is the secret gem of Gibson right now. That is their $99 Les Paul Jr. in 58. Yep. I played both of them, the TV special Les Paul and the Pelham Blue SG. And I was like, this is all you need right here. If you're going to be out on tour, don't fuck with anything else. Play these P90 guitars. They are God.
Yep. Yeah. I've had some great ones, and the stuff they're doing for Marcus. I mean, his custom shop model that's coming out. I've played all the different iterations of the prototypes, and the last one he got is fantastic guitar, man. Like, it was here for a day or two, I think. I was doing something to it, and I'm sitting upstairs playing it, and I was like, man, I don't want to put this thing down. It feels great, sounds great. They are capable, and they are focused on it now, I think, which is good, because that needs to exist. There's that market. Like, there's something that I cannot do a guitar for $1,500.
Nope.
It's just. Nope. I might as well not, it is what it is.
And that's not what it's about anyway. You're about making pieces of art that will be played 100 years from now. I can imagine someone walking into, say, a Rumble Seat Guitars type of store or Carter Vintage one day or Norm's and being like, whoa, that's one of those old bankers, like the Max Les Pauls. Those are legendary still to this day. Max Les Pauls are like, whoa, Max, crazy. So I know what you're doing. And I only wanted to ask you about the Gibson thing because I know you're involved. But this show is really about you and what you do. And also, you're a fucking solid human, dude. You are a great dude, and you love what you do. You remind me of me when I go do comedy. I'm just like, this is great, dude. We're doing comedy.
It's awesome.
The other guy's like, yeah, dude. Yeah, you've been doing it now 11 years. Get over it. It's like, no, we're still fucking, we're here.
I know, man. I love it.
Before we get out of here, let's talk two things. How do people order? What is the time frame? And that stuff.
My website, it's bankerguitar.com. Just go to that. You can go through and browse all the models and everything. There should be a click-through form to contact. Just reach out, shoot me an email, tell me what you're interested in. The process is pretty simple. I like to talk to everybody. I don't do the automated thing. I know people love to fill out a form and submit it. There's I hesitate to say I can do anything, but there's so many different things that I do or can do that like trying to put that on a page is nobody's going to read it anyways. They're going to ask me the question. So, and honestly, like, I really like to talk to somebody and kind of get to know what they're into, what they play. Like that's important. Like that's information that's valuable to me that helps me kind of convey that into what I create for them. So, but you know, all I require, you get a spot in line, you put down 50% deposit, on the price of the guitar, and you get a serial number. And I'm slightly backed up right now. I'm like running 8, going on probably 10 months for anything new coming in. But you know, I will build you a guitar and it will be fantastic. I promise you that.
I talked to Keith Nelson today. He said that not only did he go the V, but now he's going the Explorer with a mahogany neck on the Korina Explorer.
And a split headstock too.
Split headstock. Whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Like the prototype.
Yeah. He told me the story actually. He was like, yeah, I forgot who he said it was.
Yeah. It was some dude. He had told me to do. Yeah.
He was like, this is like a prototype or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, I've never heard of that one before. All right. Like definitely let's do it. He was like, but I think it was, whoever told the story said it was the absolute holy grail of guitar tones, the Honduran neck with the Korina body. And I was like, we're going to find out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The Modern is so weird with the Gumby headstock and everything. But man, what a fucking cool stepchild of the two, you know?
Yeah, I have one actually.
You got one?
Yeah.
Gibson?
Yeah.
Let's see it real quick, just for the comedy.
Let me see if I can. Yeah.
There it is.
I forgot. I think I forgot what year they reissued these.
Wow.
The custom shop did.
Wow. Look at it's such a fucking. There's the Gumby headstock. Oh no, the one remember the Gumby headstock?
The sideways one, yeah. I don't have those were pretty rare, I think.
Yeah, and they made those in Korina reissued, man. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of requests for these. Other than like the mythology of it, I really don't like these.
No.
The shape is kind of fucked up.
I don't either. It's so weird. It was like it's almost like, remember those old toys, Shrinkadinks? It's almost like you were doing a Shrinkadink of an Explorer and it fucked up in the oven.
Well, you got twisted in there. Yeah. It looks like it could be like it's possibly a Flying V, but also a bottle opener at the bottom. Like, yeah, man. Like, it's just one that I was like, it's cool. Like, it's cool enough that I gotta have one, you know. But I just never was into it. But
I gotta say, man, you're making a living.
Yeah, it's going good. It's I mean, I gotta say honestly, like I was a bit worried through the pandemic, you know, shit, maybe this is it. They're really gonna stop buying guitars for real now. Yeah. And but no, it's been going strong. You know, it's been good. I feel bad saying this because I know so many people have had such a shitty year. Yeah. But like I've been blessed, man. I've had a good year. Like I've a lot of good downtime with a lot of good friends.
It's a reset.
Yeah.
Realize what's important in life. Okay. I still like making guitars, so I'm doing what I love. And then you just fucking refocus your life. And it's a lot like 9/11 for me, man. 9/11, I think everybody was living this outrageous world of like, buy everything, do everything. And then 9/11 happened and people are like, fuck, man, we might get blown up next month or whatever. And then you slowly get away from that fear and fatten up again. And your credit cards are fucking maxed out and you got 9 cars in the lot and 34 guitars. And then a pandemic comes, you're like, shit, man, what am I doing? You know, it's it's a reel in each time, I think. And and this one's for real. You know, I haven't worked in. I mean, I got lucky and did the Texas tour with Bill, but other than that, I didn't work for 8 months, man. Without this podcast, I would have been done. Because I put all my eggs in the basket of doing comedy, and nothing's guaranteed when you're in the arts world. Nothing's guaranteed when you work for yourself like you. And I love having people like you on, because you don't settle for just a paycheck and going home on the weekends, which is fine. 90% of the world has to do that, so the 10% of us can be out there doing the lunacy.
Yeah, man. I mean, shit, like, who would have ever thought that, like, I mean, it scared the shit out of me too. I was like, fuck, okay, well, I didn't think live music was going to just suddenly go away this year. Like, that's kind of like a big thing for me, you know? And who the hell would have ever thought that would happen? And, you know, a lot of people have figured out how to adapt to it. Which is all you could do, man. I mean, there's clearly the government is not interested in, you know, helping anybody out or putting together a cohesive plan to fix this shit. But it's been good, man. Like, there's a lot of good friends of mine that I've gotten to spend a lot of time with. I've gotten to spend a lot of, like, downtime with Marcus, man. Like,
I love that, man.
It's we've been hanging out a good bit, and, like, when, you know, the first time after COVID, you know, we're kind of sitting there like, shit, man, that was like the first time I can really remember, like, just, you know, hanging out when we're not, like, running on the way to the road, or like, oh, let's go get 3 a.m., you know, breakfast at Denny's because we got to get on the bus and go to Topeka tomorrow. Like, and we were just like, man, there was like 1 week we were just like, yeah, let's, you want to go to Home Depot and get a grill? You know, just dumb, you know, everyday mundane shit. And, like, it's been good for those guys too, man, just to be able to, like, reel in after being on the road for so long and
breathe. None of us stop and breathe when we're artists, and you're just so afraid that it's all going to stop. So you just work. And then one day you're dead. And you're right, man. I would have never taken 5 days off, let alone 10 months. You know, there's just no way I would have done that. And also, I didn't want to do that because I love what I do. It's just like you love what you do, so you don't think about time off. But Marcus, man, and I'm glad that you two are together, because that's two great artists. That's the thing, man. I know you through Marcus. And so here's this triangle of great friendship and stuff through the three of us. It's just killer, man.
Yeah. He's a great dude, man. And like, that's the kind of stuff that I really love. I love to see my work being used by somebody to make their work, and then, like, it then, like, returns to me. Like, I could quit tomorrow, and, like, I wouldn't feel like, oh man, like, I could have really done something, you know, because, like, the fact that, like, I'm going to hear, you know, my guitars on, like, a Mastodon album. That's the coolest fucking thing I could possibly ever think I did. Like,
that's just nuts, man. Mastodon. Yeah. Like, you're hearing the heaviest riff and you're like, yeah, that's my guitar right there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, man. Like, it's just the coolest shit ever to me. And it's like the same with Marcus, dude. Like, it's just, he's such a good, humble person. And, like, the most, he has, like, human superpowers. It's literally like knowing one of the X-Men. Like, it's just, you would never know that, you know, Hugh Jackman has fucking knives in his fingers and turns into a Wolverine. Like, but it's just like inspiring and beautiful to see, like, that level of just raw talent in another person.
Well, that's the thing, man. He's the triple threat: songwriter, guitar player, singer. He does them all on a 10 level. That's all there's to it. That's all there's to it, man.
Oh, dude, he does, like, the things that I didn't know this. We were with him on New Year's, and we were down in the basement, and, like, he started fucking around, like, one dude from Lettuce was there, and they started jamming, and fucking Marcus hops on the Rhodes, man, and just like if I walked into a club and I was like, damn, that keys player's hot, and I was like, dude, like, what did you just crushes the keys? He's a good drummer, like a really good drummer, and he's just natural ability, man. He's got a gift, and he just plays guitar unlike. What's fascinating to me to think about being like 12, 13 years old, like, man, I wonder what it was like to be like in the clubs of Stevie Ray Vaughan and like, watch that. Like it's like seeing that. And the first time I ever saw him play, like, when he was 18, I immediately was like, holy shit, there it is. Yeah. And it just gets better and better. And like, it never gets old. Like, it's just, every time I see him play, I'm just, Jesus Christ, man. And it's like, it's something he taps into, man. Like, everybody that's that good taps into it. Like,
I always look at him as like, he's all three Skinner guitar players and Ronnie mixed.
Yeah.
He's the front line of Skinner all in one guy.
Yeah, literally.
That's fucking what it is, you know? It's just like, whoa.
It's did I ever tell you the Crossroads story from last year?
No.
The Clapton? Hopefully Marcus doesn't kill me for telling me this. He won't. Hopefully Eric Clapton doesn't. So Marcus got invited to play Crossroads, which, you know, I was like, fuck, that's amazing, dude. Like, that's the coolest shit. So I went out there with him to kind of assist, you know, guitar tech, just sort of be around, you know, and me, of course, like I've got a talent badge for Crossroads, and like they're so strict. Like, I remember like the Gibson like artist lounge that was in the area, like they couldn't leave that.
Right.
Like,
oh yeah,
I was like back there, and I'd be like, go off and buy, like, oh, hey, Bill Murray. Like, all right, yeah. Oh shit, Billy Gibbons. Okay, like, yeah. I mean, I was just insane, and so that whole day, you know, we sound checked at like 6 a.m. Marcus had played at like 10 p.m., but we were there the whole time. It was like a rotating stage setup, so. Right. You know, whoever was playing, the band next was already set up behind them. Boom.
Just spin. Yep.
Spin. So when we did sound check at 6 a.m., like line checked everything, leveled everything, moved it onto risers, boom, put it down the hallway. It's over there by like Bonnie Raitt's dressing room now. So during the whole sound check, for whatever reason, one of the backline companies didn't deliver this specific cabinet. And we're not a big deal. There's fucking 2 guitar centers in Dallas. You know, I know the guy at the rep for the company, so I'm like, I'll go out, hop in an Uber, I'll go find one. Well, so we ended up like swapping out the whole rig before they went on. Well, it's things being recorded for a DVD. Like, there's like a 17-minute slot, and that's all you got. So we basically redid the whole rig without being able to check it, because when we set Marcus's stage, it was, I think it was actually an acoustic set. It was like Gary Clark Jr. or somebody. So I'm like, I can't plug his rig in and just be like, all right, is it on? Like, does it work?
Yeah.
So we just plug all the shit in and, you know, get it set up in like 4 minutes. And I'm standing there sweating, and, you know, the curtain goes, stage turns around, and I'm sitting there on the side of it, and I'm just like, oh my God. Like, he's gonna go flip that standby switch, and it's gonna go or just fucking something horrible. And I mean, I know like those guys were all like super amped up and, you know, definitely nervous and shit. And so I'm standing there on the side of the stage, and as he starts playing, I look to my left, and there's Eric fucking Clapton, and like right next to me, and Marcus's girlfriend Haley was on the other side of him, and I'm just sitting there like, oh, Jesus Christ, that's fucking Eric Clapton. And
yeah.
So I'm like watching the set. I mean, this is the Mavericks Arena. I mean, there's like 30,000 seat venue, and I'm just, you know, just nervous as shit, but like excited. They're just crushing the set, and like Clapton is just like, yeah, I mean, absolutely awestruck at Marcus's playing, singing, like the whole thing, and they just crush it. Do the encore and everything. They get standing ovation, like the only one I'd seen at the entire show, and And I was just like jumping up and down, dude. Like, it's like, fucking, you guys just fucking killed that. Like, that was amazing. And Marcus walks off stage, band walks off stage, and Eric Clapton comes up and he's like, Marcus, like, that's the first time I've ever seen him play. Like, it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And so Marcus, we get a picture and everything, and I'm like, dude, look, Eric Clapton. I'm the guy in the background. I'm like, it's fucking Eric Clapton.
Yeah.
And Clapton looks at Marcus, and like the next act coming on was Jeff Beck, and he goes, Marcus, I hate to say it, but I wouldn't want to be Jeff Beck right now. I looked at Marcus and I was like, holy shit, dude.
Wow.
That just fucking happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. Clapton actually, I got one of the artist gifts. He got like little scale models that are like exact strings and all of his custom Strat from Crossroads that year.
Wow, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man. That was probably one of the craziest experiences of my life. It was just like, damn it, Clapton. Like,
wow.
That's just man, that was wild. But yeah, man, it's great. It's crazy to see. Like, I love it for him. Like, I can't think of another person in the world that deserves it more.
I love that, man. Love him.
Yeah, he's fantastic.
I can't thank you enough for doing the show. I love your work, and everybody order a guitar from this man. If you're thinking about getting a boutique guitar, this is the man to go to, and you're going to have a crushing guitar. And I recommend you get the Korina Explorer.
I recommend too. I'm slightly biased, but they are my favorite.
Yeah, we're all on the Explorer team over here. But thank you so much. I hope to see you face to face one day. And I enjoy looking at your stuff on Instagram. Everybody, it's Mr. Banker Guitars on Instagram.
Mr. Banker Custom.
Mr. Banker Custom, sorry, on Instagram. Yep. And follow him, please. And also tell him you heard the show here and let him know we sent you. Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.
All right, my man.
All right, brother. Have a good night.
Thank you. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Take it easy.
See you, buddy.
Later.